Hey guys, and welcome back to Mana Down Under. Apologies straight outright for my voice. I'm not doing well. But today, we're covering Nicol Bolas, the Ravager, who got spoiled for Core Set 2019. As soon as he came out, everyone wants to build a commander deck around him. Nicol Bolas Ravager is also a very competitive dragon without being a Planeswalker. He's Grixis, he's 4 mana, he's a 4/4 flyer. When he enters the battlefield, each opponent discards cards. He's got a great entry effect. But he simply has Pace 7, Flip him around, which Nicol Bolas has an affinity for number 7, so there we go. On the Nicol Bolas, the Arisen side, he's got 4 abilities. +2, draw 2 cards. -3, he'll deal 10 damage to any target creature or Planeswalker, so nothing's a threat to him, because he can just 10 damage something outright. -4, you put a creature or Planeswalker from any graveyard and put it onto the battlefield under your control. And -12, exile the entirety of someone's library but the bottom card. Pretty much just death. They might as well just say you win the game. So, Nicol Bolas does a few things. He cares about drawing cards. He cares about the graveyard, in the sense that he can play with it and manipulate it. And discard. They're his main 3 things. Now, the general game plan of this kind of deck would be more of a control, get a tighter grip on your opponent and just squeeze the life out of him, which is what Nicol Bolas does in lore. Now, this is a deck idea. This is not a hardcore deck list. I like to leave a bit of variance in my decks so people can adjust it or make it how they want to make it. But I've gone full Nicol Bolas tribal, and that's the great thing about this commander. Building him Nicol Bolas tribal or flavorful, it's actually really good. Like, it seems like it works quite well. So first up, you're gonna run all the other Nicol Bolas, the Nicol Boli, or as a lot of people have been calling the new Nicol Bolas, Flippy B. Shout out to Michael, because he's a transforming Planeswalker. He's Nicol Bolas. He flips, you get the joke. So all the Planeswalker Nicol Bolas care about the same thing: getting rid of opponents' hands, like attacking them, making them sacrifice permanents or weakening additions like that, or just simply destroying permanents. Like the God-Pharaoh here, he exiles the top card from the opponent's library until they exile a non-land card, and until turn you can cast that card without paying its mana cost. That can give you a huge payoff on commander. And +1, he just exiles 2 cards from the hand. It's not a discard, but again you're attacking the hand. -4, just again 7 damage to any creature. So creatures aren't much of a threat to this deck. Nicol Bolas the Deceiver is a bit more basic, 8 mana, 5 loyalty, but he's +3, each opponent loses 3 life unless they sacrifice an online permanent or discards a card. So that kind of ties into what you're trying to do anyway. Simply again, destroy a creature, draw a card, and then his opponent is, again, the number 7, deal 7, draw 7, all that. Nicol Bolas the Planeswalker, my first Planeswalker I ever pulled myself in Magic. Destroy a non-permanent creature, that's his plus, that's really good. You just go for the lands, or whatever they're trying to rely on. And gain control of target creature. That's like a sub-theme in the deck you could totally go for, because Nicol Bolas in the lore gains control of people. So, you play the Nicol Bolas, your Nicol Bolas tribal. Extra star points if you play the OG Nicol Bolas from Legends. Extra points if you play the original copy, if you have the money. Now, you want to run the gods from the Amonkhet block, because in the lore, he created them. They're his little henchmen to deal with his plane, look after it. But, they all care about what he does. The Locust God cares about drawing cards. So if you're drawing 2 cards through your commander, you're creating 2 attackers with flying and haste. The Scarab God cares about the graveyard. If you really rely on the Scarab God, you could go like a zombie tribal. But he gets you to scry, he cares about the graveyard. If you're putting a lot of stuff from your opponents into the graveyard, you can use it. The Scarab God kinda works, like, he's kinda weird removal, kind of draw, but again, he's here for the flavor of it. And they're really good because they don't have like a command attacks to them, because whenever they die, they just go back to your hand anyway. Now, here's just a bunch of other cards which are kind of flavorful to the deck. Hour of Devastation is amazing in this deck. It's 5 mana, 5 damage to kill most things in Commander. There's not much that it doesn't, but it will kill other Planeswalkers most of the time too. Unless you're versing any big fatties like Khan and that. The fact that it's non-Bolas Planeswalkers is really fun. Torment of Hailfire is, when you pop off Torment of Hailfire when X equals 10, it's a good feeling. It really just, again, discarding or sacrificing, and then they're losing the 3 life. Crux of Fate is just kind of a cool, flavorful board wipe, and sometimes, depending how you build your deck, the dragons or non-dragons could matter. Patient Rebuilding's not out yet, because it's from Core Set 2019, but you want the graveyard to be nice and full. You want to remove opponent's options, and you want the graveyard to be full so you can play with it. Patient Rebuilding does exactly that, and there's a chance you can draw your cards, so it's a wonderful, wonderful enchantment to run. Then we've got the Dark Intimations from Kaladesh. Not as strong as things like the Cruel Ultimatum, but at 5 mana, each master sack a creature or planeswalker, then discard a card, and you do the opposite. You return a creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand, and then draw a card. In addition, when your next Bolas planeswalker comes out, exile the Dark from your graveyard. It comes with additional loyalty. It could help. The Cruel Ultimatum is a great payoff. 7 mana, your opponent's going to sack a creature, discard 3 cards, or lose 5 life, and you're going to do the opposite. You're going to return a creature from your graveyard to your hand, you're going to gain 5 life and draw 3 cards. I love those effects. And then like other cards that are flavorful to Nicol Bolas I don't think people remember. And then we also have other cards like Gem of Becoming. It's a 3 mana artifact with pay 3, sack it, and you search your library for your island, swamp, and mountain. Does not specify basics. You're going to go and grab your 3 shock lands. Or if you're a high roller, you're going to get your dual lands. Visage of Bolas is from the intro decks, the Planeswalker ones, but it's a mana rock that cares about your 3 colors, and it can fetch out one of your Bolas Planeswalkers. In my opinion, there's no bad Nicol Bolas Planeswalker, they're all pretty solid. So great in this deck as well. And the Eldest Reborn, it's only an uncommon from Dominaria, but it's 3 stages. Care about what Nicol Bolas does. Make your opponent sacrifice, making them discard, and then you resurrect a creature or planeswalker. In Bolas's clutches, I've got this here over other things like Control Magic and that, because they can hit any permanent. And plus the artwork, it's got Bolas in it, why not? Augur Bolas, it's not too bad. It can sometimes find you an instant of sorcery that you need in this deck, and you would run a few, being Grixis. Mindclaw Shaman, again, one of his little minions, but it's a really good uncommon. The fact that when it is battlefield, target opponent has to reveal the hand, you can cast an instant of sorcery without paying its cost. That you see on rares today, even mythics. That's a great little 5-drop. Now, that's the flavorful part of the deck, which I feel like most Nicol Bolas' deck should run. From now on, I've kind of grouped them up into ways to sub-theme the deck up. I feel like Curses would be a good way to go for Bolas. It kind of supports him flavorful in what he's doing, and a lot of Curses just incremental advantage or disadvantage for your opponent. So things like Cruel Reality from Amonkhet, at the beginning of their upkeep, they have to sack a creature or planeswalker. If they can't, they lose 5 life, so it keeps their board presence down. My favourite is actually Torment of Scarabs, because it's 4 mana. On their upkeep, they lose 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. So they have to discard or sack a non-land first, and then if they can't, they lose 3 life. Which is great, because most people would rather just lose a 3 life before they sack anything, so it works in your favour. Curse of the Bloody Tome supports the graveyard theme, because you care about a little bit of mill, you want something in the graveyard to play with. Curse of Misfortunes, you can just really stack them on, like it lets you keep searching for more curses that you don't have. I feel like they're probably the more popular options, but you could totally run like Death Hold, control their creatures. Curse of the Bloodletting is really unfair in a multiplayer game. Curse of Echoes, actually I would run, because it's great fun. Whenever the enchanted player casts an instant sorcery, each other player copies it. So in a sense, your opponent can never cast a counter spell, because if they do, every other player at the table gets a copy of that counter spell, so you're just going to counter the counter. Or if they try and do some really silly shenanigans, they've got to remember, whatever they do, everyone else gets to do it too. And then like the drawing curses and that, like promote other people to gang up on them. I feel like the shrines, again, they kind of support what the deck wants to do. The red lets you ping equal to shrines, the black would let you make them discard equal to shrines, which if you get all 3 shrines out, them discarding 3 cards a turn is really quite toxic and strangling. And then the blue one just lets you draw equal number of shrines. Again, it's what you do. You're Grixis. This is great. Now, the deck loves drawing. You're blue-black. You're going to draw a lot of cards. But you need to keep them milling as well. So Rhystic Studies, I think newer people forget about it, but it's a great card. Sphinx's Tutelage, it lets you loot, and it mills every time you draw. They've got to mill the top 2 cards every time you draw 1 card. If it shares a color, they repeat. Very good against mono decks. Jace's Erasure, just they mill whenever you draw. It's a 1-to-1. That's not too bad. Archmage Ascension is not worth much, but you can get it off quite easy. At the beginning of each end step, if you drew 2 or more cards this turn, you may put a quest counter on it. As long as Archmage Ascension has 6 or more counters on it, if you draw a card, you may instead just tutor. The fact that it says at the beginning of the end step, so your first draw is your turn draw. So you can draw one more card somewhere in the turn, you get a counter on it. It's easy. Nicol Bolas decks draw 3-4 cards a turn pretty easy. Jin-Gitaxias, it's blue, it's silly. In a sense, it makes your opponent discard because it neg-7s their hand, which unless they've got Wreck Tower out. Consecrated Sphinx lets you just get carried away. Mindcrank is a way, if you start going really heavy on the mill plan, Mindcrank's a good way to really peg them down a bit in life. Keening Stone as well can get out of hand if it's left unchecked. You can just mill an opponent outright. It's like a weird win condition on its own if it's just left unchecked. Now the graveyard. You care about creatures and planeswalkers. Planeswalkers are hard to interact with in the graveyard except for Bolas. But creatures you can get your grubby mitts all over. Sheldred's a great way, you can keep resurrecting your creatures and make them sack, again, your choking playstyle. The Primordials are great as well. The black one cares about creatures and the blue one cares about infinite sorceries. Either way, you get to play without mana cost, it's wonderful. Phyrexian Delver comes into play, you may return a target creature from your graveyard, and you lose life equal to its CMC. Your commander, you have a lot of life, you can play with it a little bit. Phyrexian Reclaim is great, because if you lose anything, just bring it back. Reanimate and Animate Dead let you get really greedy in the graveyard. In Rise of the Dark Realms, if you've been going hardcore on your mill, that's a big payoff. There are a few planeswalkers that do support Nicol Bolas in a way. Angrath, I didn't think would be one, but he does. His +1 here lets you make your opponent discard and lose 2 life. His -3 lets you gain control of a creature, and if it's a weenie, you get to sacrifice its too. And then negate each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in the graveyard. So Angrath supports what Nicol Bolas is doing. You get to discard, you get to steal and kill, and if you've been milling him, his negate can kill someone outright again. Dak Faden, you're stealing things, he's the thief of the multiverse. Liliana is quite tied into Nicol Bolas in terms of the lore and flavour, but I feel like Liliana Invest is probably the first one most people go to. She cares about discard, she can tutor for cards, that's what you need in Commander, and she can resurrect all creatures and graveyards under your control. So again, she's supporting everything you're doing. If you got the money, the other Lilianas are great. I love the Last Hope, I love the big modern $100 Liliana, so if you got the money, go for it. Funny enough, Jace Memory Adept, Nicol Bolas is his enemy, but he supports deck quite well. His +1 lets you draw and then mill 1. 0, just make them mill 10, that's fine, you want a graveyard to play with. And then, the next 7, any player can draw 20 cards, you target yourself, you gotta be greedy. Now the rest is kind of just support, like, they're not must-haves or whatnot, but I feel like they're decks which offer a bit of value to the deck, like Yawgmoth Vial Offering. It's quite easy to cast legendary sorceries in this deck because Bolas isn't too hard to get out. It lets you return 1 creature or planeswalker from a graveyard to the battlefield under your control. Again, doesn't have to be your planeswalker. And you get to destroy a creature or a planeswalker. So you kill 1, resurrect 1. It's cool. Kolaghan's Command, and you'll see later on, most of the commands on this deck just a good value. You need the versatility of them. And then you've got Expirate from Conspiracy. If you can get their thing off, it's crazy. You're either going to get a ton of turns, or you're going to steal a ton of things. Painful Quandary, it's not a curse, but it might as well be. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, they lose 5 life, or they discard a card. If you can't discard a card, they're going to lose 5 life. Wit's End, I know it's not good, but I wanted to mention it for flavour. Like, totally don't have to run it if you don't want to. But if you ever get it off, you just watch them cry. Psychic Strike, I just want to mention it's a good counter spell. It's still a 3 mana, counter any spell, but they mill 2. Sometimes that 2 mill could be enough to help you. Undermine is just a great counter spell. You can run any counter spells you want, and I'll preference that at the end. Croesus the Purger is a Grixis dragon from Invasion back in the day. He has a very similar alignment to Nicol Bolas. All the Invasion dragons have pay 3 of their respective colour when you hit them, hit your opponent. And if you do, you choose a colour, and then you do set effect. So in this card, you choose a colour, and their opponent has to discard all cards in the hand of that colour. You're versing a monocolor deck, they're gonna cry a little bit. Clever Impersonator, there are a lot of crazy enchantments in this deck which you can just copy, good value. But again, this deck plays with the opponent's graveyard and field quite a bit, so use theirs to your advantage. Dragon Lord, Sealamgar, again the whole stealing mechanics, Nicol Bolas. If you steal their commander, they're gonna cry. Raider's Wake, I've got this here instead of Migraine or Liliana's Caress or whatever it is, like the enchantment discards. Because whenever an opponent discards a card, they lose 2 life, but it has Raid. if you attacked with a creature, you can make them discard a card. So it can self-sustain. That's why I went this way. And like Clone Impersonator, Phyrexian Metamorph can be anything you need it to be, so away you go. Tutors are wonderful. In your Grixis, you have the best tutors to select from. You've got the really good black ones, Mystical Tutor, Gamble if you want to be a little bit greedy, and if you lose it anyway, you don't matter too much because you can play with your own graveyard a bit. Ravager is not banned yet in Commander, so play it while you can, because it's simply pay 2, sack a creature, tutor. Rakdos Return. I like the idea of trying to get as much Rakdos as I can in the deck, but he doesn't support the deck too much, but his return is pretty good. It's a big old burn spell and a discard spell in one. Damnation. Just I pick Damnation as your generic board wipe, but run as many as you want or how the different ones you like. Gethel Vault, because you are playing with a graveyard quite a bit, it doesn't hurt to have him. He can mill, and he can return things from their graveyard to your field. I actually run a copy of that in my Lazav Commander deck. He's pretty good. And then your lands. If you want Nicol Bolas out on turn 4, which you ideally do, you want your best land base you can afford or have. Whether you're willing to spend money for the fetch lands or even the slow fetch lands, your shock lands or your Battle for Zendikar fetchables, or even your tricolor, like, you need your 3 colors to be on point. And you can do that as well through mana rocks and other things, but your fetchables, your fetch lands, your 3 colors, or as many as you want, even like City of Brass and things like that if you want to. But there's plenty and plenty of other cards which you can run. Counterspell, Soul Rings, your Thrans, your Gilded Lotus, all the commands, like the Confluence as well. Like, this is just a deck idea. As you can see in the background, there's tons of cards here which I haven't mentioned. But tell me how you'd want to build it. Like, even if send me exact deck lists down below. I'd love to see what people come up with. Nicol Bolas would be a very fun deck to build. It's very constricting. You care about draw, discard, and the graveyard. That's your 3 areas, your 3 colors. Be the villain for once. Have fun doing it, guys.
Thanks for watching, guys. Please remember to like and sub, and have a good one.